is Matt from Ace Appliance in Toledo, Ohio. Welcome back to another in-home diagnostic video from ApplianceVideo.com. Today we're going to be replacing a 2-ton condensing unit, air conditioning condensing unit. So we're going to swedge the 3/4 line so it fits on the 5/8 line. Right now currently it doesn't fit. Versus buying a fitting, you can buy a fitting, a reducing coupling that would go from 3/4 to 5/8, or you can actually take a swedging tool and you can swedge it out and save the $4 to $5 for the fitting. Let's see if that's enough. We're real close. I'm going to have to swedge it just a little bit more. The swedging tool, it actually just expands each line set. It'll go from a 1/4 inch line all the way up to 3/4 inch line, and the very top is 7/8. So that was swedged enough. Yep, there we go. That's on. That's swedged out now. So it's going over the 5/8 line, and then it'll go right into the actual unit itself. We're going to have to take and move just the unit just a little bit, and we'll get it in there. The next thing we have to do is to do any type of brazing at all. Everything, the lines have to be sanded down. You have to have a clean fitting, have to be completely sanded. So what we're going to do next, we're going to sand down the 3/8 line and the 5/8 line to make sure we have a clean fitting to do the brazing on. Now that we have the piece cut for our 3/4 to 5/8 going down here, we're going to take and size up our 3/8 line. So I've got a coupling that I'm putting on the 3/8 line right here. We're going to put it on here, which will couple over the actual 3/8 line to the unit. We're going to take it up to a comfortable point to cut. That way we'll put another coupling on right here, and we'll be able to couple the two together. So there'll be 2 braze joints for the 3/8, one right here and one right here. Then there'll be one going into the unit for the 3/4 inch line and one for the 5/8 reducing line. Now that we have the actual copper cut for the suction line and the liquid line, we know that everything is fitting properly now. We know that everything is set in place. The unit's leveled. We're ready to take the lines off, and we're going to have to sand all the fittings down extremely good, because good sanded clean fittings are the only way to take and get a good clean connection. So we're going to take this off right here. We're going to sand this fitting down. We're going to take the 3/8 line that we made off, set it on top of the unit. We're going to take the 3/4 to 5/8 line off. We're going to sand down this side and all the fittings real good with a piece of sand cloth. Since this is brand new copper, it's pretty clean already. Sand each side. Even though it's new copper, I sand it down anyway. I'll sand each side down. As you can see, that's good and clean. We will take the coupling off that I have on the liquid line for the condenser. We'll sand that down. Even though it comes clean from the factory, we want to make sure everything is clean. But the two most important fittings are the 3/8 connection and the 5/8 connection. As you can see, they're corroded pretty bad. Standard sand cloth, emery cloth. You want to make sure those are good and clean, about 1 inch back, because sometimes you have to even go back further if you have to insert a line on. Sometimes you can go up back as far as 1.5 to 2 inches. So this line I'm going to sand down a little bit further, because when I put the new line on, it actually may go back up to this point when I put the new line on. It's always advisable too, before you braze, that you put some type of plate. If there's leaves or anything underneath here before you braze, which we will, a backup plate, because you can catch leaves on fire and different things on fire if it's not, you don't have some type of protective plate underneath it. Now that we have both the liquid line and the suction line pieced together, ready to braze. What we're going to do next is we need to take the schrader caps out before we braze the unit together, and we also have to spray some thermal trap on the king valves to make sure they do not overheat. This actually will protect the fittings and prevent heat from getting to the valves from damaging the valves. It absolutely will stop any heat transmission once you spray it on the valves itself. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take the caps off the liquid and the suction line. We're going to set them on top of the unit itself. And we're going to take both of the schrader valves out. There's two schrader valves, one in each valve. They unscrew counterclockwise. And these schrader valves have a seal, a rubber seal on them. Just like a bicycle tire, they depress, it'll let refrigerant out. But if that seal overheats, it'll burn. And when we go to put the schrader caps back in, if we don't take them out, those rubber seals will burn and they won't seal properly and we'll have issues. The suction line. Unscrewing it counterclockwise. Got them both right here. I'm going to put them right in my front pocket so I don't lose them. And now we're going to actually spray thermal trap on the valves. So now I'm going to spray from the back side of the valve so it doesn't spray up into the valve itself. Thermal trap all over the fitting. As you can see, it's like a gel. And what that does is it prevents any heat from getting past that fitting to damage the king valve. We don't want to damage this king valve, so we spray that on there. And we are ready to braze. We got a clean fitting here, 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 and here. So we've got actually 4 brazes, 2 on the suction line. We've got 2 on the liquid line. Different people use different torches. Some people use MAP gas to do something like this where they can still use a soft solder, but we prefer to use oxygen acetylene. It gets between 800 to 1200 degrees, and with an 80-20 brazing stick, 20% silver brazing stick that we're going to use, the actual brazing joints that we do will be stronger than the actual copper itself. So we're going to take and open up the gauge ports to the oxygen and the acetylene. This is your acetylene, this is your oxygen. I'm going to turn counterclockwise and open up the oxygen valve. Then I'm going to take a service valve wrench and I'm going to put it on the acetylene side, on the back side, and we're going to take and open up the valve by pulling it toward me, which is counterclockwise. Now we're going to open up the torches. We're going to open up the acetylene first until I hear a small amount coming out. Then we're going to open up the oxygen. We want a light flame so we don't burn through it, but heavy enough to where it can blow around. Now we're going to start brazing the suction line. And as you can see, we put the backing plate from the old condensing unit down because there was a lot of leaves. And the leaves were starting to catch on fire, so we grabbed the backing plate so we don't catch the leaves on fire. It's not anything major, but it is a help when you don't have little small leaf fires coming. So we're heating the unit, heating the fitting back and forth, and you want to draw it in. Not too much flame on it, just back off a little bit. We don't need any flux on this particular fitting because this unit, this brazing rod has flux built into it. As you can see, it flowed all the way around the fitting. We may touch it up a little bit on the back side, but it looks like it flowed real well. We heated the fitting up until the brazing rod started flowing. Now we're going to do the front fitting. Pause. Now we're doing the front fitting on the suction line. As you can see, we have a backing plate so we don't burn the bottom pad of the condensing unit. We have to keep constant heat on that, but moving the heat back and forth so it doesn't burn through the actual copper. Once it starts flowing, once that gets bright red, you'll see that it's going to, the the brazing stick, the 80-20 stick, will start flowing properly. Now that we've got the two joints brazed on the suction line, we always do a visual inspection with a mirror to make sure that the bottom part of the joint is actually brazed properly. Inspect all the way around the joint on both sides. Visual inspection is the fastest way to do it. If you see that you have maybe a possible small gap, you can re-braze before you actually add refrigerant to the system and find out that you have a leak. Now we've got the two couplings to braze on the liquid line, and we're going to do that next. Now we're going to start working on the two couplings on the liquid line of the unit. We're going to start with the back side of the coupling working towards the unit. Heating up the coupling until it's red cherry hot, and you'll see that the stick's starting to flow right now. The other side of the coupling, which should still be cherry hot, so it won't take much heat. Our last fitting, working away around the fitting. It looks like it flowed real well this time. The back side of the coupling looks very good. Now we're going to shut off the torches by shutting the acetylene off first, then shutting the oxygen off. Now we're going to take a visual inspection with a mirror and go around the fitting to do a visual inspection on each side so we can see if there's any leaks. We can normally physically see the leak before we actually leak check it and pressurize the system. Next step, we'll be pressurizing the system and leak checking it with a fluorescent soap bubble. We'll cool down the actual copper lines with a damp rag to cool them down, so we can cool them down enough to reinsert the schrader valves so we can actually pressurize the system. Now that everything is brazed, we're going to reinsert the two schrader valves, one for the liquid line, one for the suction line. They screw in counterclockwise. We took them out counterclockwise, they screw in clockwise. So you can see the little notch right here, and actually it will go into a notch. We'll screw those in clockwise until they are good and snug. That's the liquid line. The schrader valve is going to go in the suction line now. Usually you can start it with your hand, one or two turns. Put your schrader tool on there and screw it in clockwise. They're both in. You can see you can just press them with your finger a little bit, just like a bicycle tire. Now what we're going to do is put our suction and liquid line gauges on. We're going to pressurize the lines all the way up to the evaporator in back. These king valves are shut. There's two valves right here which are still completely shut, so there's no refrigerant that can get past there at all. So we're going to wipe these down real good. We're going to put our gauges on and we're going to pressurize it to see if these fittings are secure and there's no leaks in the fittings before we actually open up the king valves and let the refrigerant, the pre-charged refrigerant that's in the system, out. Thank you for watching another quality video from ApplianceVideo.com.